And I mean, that's definitely an area I wanted to touch on was the mortality rates of, with childbirth when it comes to Black and Brown communities. So just talk about the history of doulas in the African American community. Is that something that like pretty much dates all the way back to the earliest of times? Yeah.
To the beginning. I show a lot of videos in my childbirth education class about, in ancient African tribes, in ancient Eastern tribes, you also always saw these statures of three figures. You had the mom, you had the person delivering the baby, and you also had another support person who was also a woman. Women have been caring for women since the beginning of times. If you think back to, ancient times, you would have the men out hunting and gathering, and then the women were in the village kind of caring for themselves until the men came home with the food and things like that. So there were always the women supporting women. So even though there wasn't this specific term of doulas, women have always been the support people for other women, making sure that they're fed, making sure that they're hydrated, making sure that they're cared for in that postpartum period. But if we fast forward a bit, then we hear more about our granny midwives who were entrusted with the birth process and labor process for so very long until Western society decided that, this could be something that can be medicalized. This is something that we can kind of take control over. And it wasn't until less than 100 years ago, that birth transferred from the home setting to the hospital setting majority. So you had your granny midwives like your Ma Callens, who was from Pineville, South Carolina, who was from Berkeley County, who caught so many babies. And had such good outcomes and such good statistics for our moms and our babies. And so that's where, and now you can see that there's this shift that's happening back to midwifery, back to doula services, where we're kind of taking back the autonomy of ourselves and taking control of our birth processes and our families so that we can go back to being the community that we were always meant to be. We have always been rooted in love. We've always been rooted in community. We've always been tribal people. This is something that we have gotten completely away from, but there is this shift, a great shift that's happening where we're returning back to that. And that's something that I'm happy to be a part of.